It's been described as Malaysia's political Game of Thrones. 94-year-old Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad's sudden resignation, only to be reinstated by the king, was widely seen as yet another spat with his designated successor Anwar Ibrahim. But before long, Mahathir and Anwar united again in an attempt to form a new government, only to find themselves both on the outside looking in as someone else. Muhyiddin Yassin was sworn in as Malaysia's 8th Prime Minister. So where did it all go wrong for Malaysia's political colossus Mahathir? And what does it mean for the country? Joining me now from Kuala Lumpur to discuss this is Syed Saddiq, a Member of Parliament who served as the Minister of Youth and Sport in Mahathir's most recent government. Thank you for joining me on Up Front. It's been a wild 2 weeks in Malaysian politics. Just a week ago, your political mentor, Mahathir Mohamad, seemed poised to stay on as Prime Minister, beyond the time anyone had really imagined when he came into power in 2018. Now he's gone, he's been sidelined, he's crying foul. He says he's been betrayed. How did it all come to this?
It came to this because of the formation of an illegitimate backdoor government. The fact that without Dr. Mahathir's knowledge, that his own colleagues decided to work together with the well-known global kleptocrats to form a backdoor government and to take down the democratically elected Pakatan Harapan government, I think it's truly a sad day for Malaysian democracy.
There are obviously a lot of concerns about the legitimacy of this new government. You called it a backdoor government lacking in legitimacy. It wasn't elected by the people. The Guardian newspaper in the UK, for example, called the King's decision to name Muhyiddin Prime Minister a royal coup. Is that a description you would agree with?
I think it's unfair to blame the Malaysian King. The reality is the leaders who currently claim government came in the wrong fashion, where they presented the wrong numbers to the Malaysian King. For an example, my party president claimed that I support him, that I signed the statutory declaration, including Tun Dr Mahathir and Datuk Seri Mukris Mahathir. So when he presented the numbers to the Malaysian King, he claimed that he had 36 members of parliament supporting him among his party, but in reality that is not the case.
But the Malaysian King did decide, and you're claiming that Muhyiddin doesn't have the support of majority of members of parliament, but the King decided he did, appointed him Prime Minister. Did Mahathir not see this coming? Did he miscalculate? How did this great tactician, who's been around so long, get outplayed by Muhyiddin? Is he out of touch? Is he just too old?
I think it's just wrong for their side to claim that Dr. Mahathir was the architect of this move, and that's exactly what they wanted to do. They said that this move in the end is to protect Tun Dr Mahathir Mohamad from continuous attacks from his own partners like Datuk Seri Anwar and DAP. But in reality, Dr Mahathir rejects this form of government because he wants to work with the leaders which he worked with, which won the last election, not to suddenly open the doors of government to the global kleptocrats to come in. And
you say that Mahathir wants to work with the leaders who he worked with in the last election and the people who came in. Isn't the problem there that, yes, he's kept his promise not to ally with UMNO, who you call global kleptocrats, the party tainted by corruption and lost power in 2018. He may have kept that pledge not to work with them, but he also failed to keep another pledge, which was he was going to hand over power to Anwar Ibrahim. That was the promise he was made. That was what Anwar Ibrahim believed, and he didn't do it. Had he stuck to that promise, maybe you wouldn't be in the situation you are today, so divided and all over the place.
He has. And the fact is that in the last discussion at the Pakatan Harapan Presidential Council, including Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim and Tun Dr Mahathir was there, I'm a part of the Presidential Council, there was an agreement to give room for Dr Mahathir to govern, and then when the right time comes to hand over power to Datuk Seri Anwar. An agreement was after APEC.
But hold on, you say that when the right time came, he would have handed over. When was that right time? Because once he became Prime Minister in 2018, he said 1 or 2 years. Then it became, quote, 2 or 3 years. Then not beyond 3 years. Then not until after the APEC summit. He kept just kicking the can down the road, didn't he?
He's been very consistent.
No, he hasn't been consistent.
He's been very consistent.
He said
all
1 to 2 years.
Even
then he
before
said 2 to 3 years.
Agreement.
That's not consistent. That is not consistent. He said 1 or 2 years. Then he said 2 or 3 years. That, by definition, is not consistent.
Every decision is decided democratically together among all party heads in the Presidential Council of Pakatan Harapan. And the agreement which we had last Friday, last 2 Fridays, is for Dr Mahathir to govern and to leave after APEC and hand it over to Datuk Seri Anwar. And we agreed as a consensus. Unfortunately, this consensus was not listened to, and in the end, that there are other parties out there who are unwilling and unhappy, and as a consequence, subvert Malaysian democracy.
You say Malaysian democracy has been subverted because a coalition government was formed in a back room without an election. But wasn't Mahathir about to do the same thing last week himself? He was going to form a new coalition that would have maybe sidelined Anwar Ibrahim, and that wouldn't have been a coalition that was picked by the people.
Absolutely not. If Tun Dr Mahathir really was power crazy, he could have simply just remained as the Prime Minister, and for there to be a change in coalition with him still heading the Prime Ministership. That was exactly what this new coalition wanted. Instead, he stepped down, his moral conscience is clean, and he still fought to ensure that the democratically elected government will stay in power because of the people.
But he's not retiring, and you say he's not power crazy. How would you describe a 94-year-old who is still in office and has been Prime Minister since before you were born?
Because at that point in time, he was given the opportunity to lead this new undemocratically elected coalition. He was given a chance. He rejected it. He didn't want to be a part of this so-called grand architect. What happened after that? He stepped down. He continuously aligned himself with his democratically elected partners and moved in to challenge this unholy alliance which just came in.
Just bigger picture, I want to ask you about what this all means for Malaysia moving forward as a multi-ethnic, multi-religious country. Anwar Ibrahim's party has long spoken about taking a non-racial approach. When he allied with Mahathir, there was hope that this would be a different Malaysia going forward, especially for minorities. Some would say Malaysia is actually going backwards now under this new Prime Minister and this new government. Are we going to see a new set of policies favouring Malay or Muslim supremacy in Malaysia now?
We'll have to wait. It's not just about race-based policies. If you also see there's a lack of good racial composition or unity in this new government, which I think will be bad for Malaysia.
Coming back to my question about discrimination, in December 2018, when your government was discussing signing a UN convention to eliminate racial discrimination, tens of thousands of Malaysians took to the streets in your country to oppose that move because they didn't want any disruption of the preferential treatment that they get as Malays. When tens of thousands of people take to the streets saying they support discrimination, that's a problem for your country, isn't it?
Exactly, and that's why we need to address it gradually but surely. Under Dr Mahathir, it was the most diverse cabinet in Malaysian history. We had a lot more women representation. The Deputy Prime Minister was Datuk Sri Wan Azizah. A lot of the key cabinet portfolios were run by women. We had a lot more ethnic representation of ethnic minorities.
Isn't the problem, though, that the undemocratic coalition, as you call it, is led by a Prime Minister who says he's Malay first rather than Malaysian back in 2010, and yet he's a senior member of your party. This is not somebody in your opposing party. This is a member of your party and was on your side until the other day. You can't just disown him now.
Mehdi, he is like a father to me. One of the reasons why I joined politics was because of him. He was one of the persons who spoke up against the global kleptocrats, who was sacked by his party for speaking up against the global kleptocrats. I joined his party as one of the co-founders. My mother was threatened. She was a teacher and she was threatened by the government then. I lost my job, Mandy, as a researcher and as a lecturer. My whole family was threatened. So much money was awarded to me if I decided to join the global kleptocrats then. What truly disappoints me is that today, my very own leader, my father, decided to open the door of Malaysian government and democracy to the same global kleptocrats who threatened me, my family, who sacked him and threatened his family, and now are aligning himself.
And I get that. I'm asking a point about race and discrimination. You're saying he's like a father figure to you, and I'm saying to you, when you were considering him as your father figure, he was making some pretty provocative remarks about being Malay first. Would you criticize him for saying that? Do you consider yourself to be Malay first?
I'm always a Malaysian first, but I think it's not wrong for me to be proud of my race, and it is important for me to ensure that especially those who are underprivileged, coming from poor family backgrounds, deserve to be helped and assisted, which unfortunately today are majority Malay. That's why when I supported him, and the foundation of this party is to ensure that poor Malays are well taken care of, but most importantly, one of the biggest founding pillars is to challenge global kleptocracy, to ensure that Malay leaders in Malaysia are known to be leaders of integrity, those who can be proud to say as leaders of all Malaysians and can never be tainted with corruption and mismanagement and abuse of power. That was the reason why I joined this party, and that was exactly the reason why I supported Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, my father.
Syed Saddiq, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you for joining me on Upfront.
Thank you very much, Mehdi.
That's our show. Upfront will be back next week.